All right, so here we have the Tenchi Mystic Forge combo deck. Tenchi is the person that played it to a 5-0 in last week's Modern Deck Dump. Haven't made any changes to the deck. Just going to go ahead and run it the way that they ran it. But basically, how this deck works is you get the card Mystic Forge into play. Mystic Forge allows you to look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it is an artifact or a colorless non-land card, and you can also tap it, pay 1, and exile the top card of your library. So basically, you play Mystic Forge. If it's like a land or a card you can't cast, you tap it, pay 1 life, and then move that card away so that you can play the other cards in your deck. So of the cards that we wouldn't be able to play off of the top of our deck, our Chief Engineer, and these lands. Otherwise, everything else is castable off of Mystic Forge. But obviously, you need your lands to cast spells, and then also Chief Engineer in play is like super powerful. It gives your artifact spells convoke. So once it's in play, you can kind of go off with the deck using your other creatures, using even your Mystic Forges, even your Thorn of the Amethysts to cast your artifact spells off the top of your deck with Mystic Forge. And then otherwise, everything else here is just going towards the combo, which is basically you have a bunch of creatures and you can attack with them. Otherwise, the actual kill or like the combo kill is Arcbound Ravager and Walking Ballista. Arcbound Ravager has an ability called Modular, where it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter, and then you can sacrifice other artifacts to put +1/+1 counters on Arcbound Ravager, and then you can sacrifice your Arcbound Ravager and use its modular ability to move its +1/+1 counters somewhere, usually moving them to the Walking Ballista. The Walking Ballista then can remove +1/+1 counters to deal 1 damage to any target, so if you get whatever their life total is in +1/+1 counters on Arcbound Ravager, you can put it on Walking Ballista and then go ahead and kill them with the Walking Ballista. With like something like Master of Ethereum, you can even cast Walking Ballista for 0. It'll stay in play because Master of Ethereum gives it +1/+1, and then you can add the counters later with the Arcbound Ravager. And then as far as interaction goes, you have 4 Thorn of the Amethyst, making non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Being that outside of Mystic Forge, everything else is a creature that you're going to cast. Means that this doesn't super affect you once it's in play. And then Lodestone Golem says non-artifact spells cost 1 more to play. Once again, the only thing that really affects is Chief Engineer and obviously your lands, but it doesn't really affect the lands, obviously. But so then you get to cast. You don't get taxed on your spells except for Chief Engineer, and your opponents will get taxed on their spells once Lodestone Golem's in play. As far as the sideboard goes, more artifact interaction in the sideboard. Phyrexian Revoker can name things like Thopter Foundry, can name things like Devoted Druid, so it's kind of good against those style of combo decks. It can name Oblivion Stone against the Tron deck, so they can't blow up all your permanents. Hangerback Walker is good against like the attrition-y matchups, decks that want to kill all of your creatures. Hangerback Walker makes it so that it's very hard for them to wipe your board completely of creatures, so it's just like a nice grindy card there. Also works very well with Arcbound Ravager. An extra Mystic Forge, just to like speed up your deck, I would assume. Throne of the God Pharaoh is very good against decks with the card Ensnaring Bridge. Ensnaring Bridge doesn't allow you to attack with your creatures because once they get down on cards, then you can't attack with Ensnaring Bridge, since you can only attack with creatures with power less than the number of cards in your opponent's hand once Ensnaring Bridge is in play. But this way you can tap them to cast things off of Chief Engineer and stuff like that. You can still attack with the cards like Ornithopter and Signal Pest because they don't have any power. And then Throne of the God Pharaoh will do extra damage to them. And then finally we have our Graveyard Hate in Relic of Progenitus and Grafdigger's Cage. Grafdigger's Cage also doubling as a way to stop people from casting spells from their graveyards or their libraries. A little anti-synergy here because Mystic Forge casts cards from the top of your library, so when you do board in the Grafdigger's Cage, you have to be aware of that interaction, which makes it a little wary of me, but maybe we just you are winning if you have a Grafdigger's Cage in play, or you're winning when you have Mystic Forge in play, but that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Otherwise, let's go ahead and play some Magic.